Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. I'm your host, Phil Friedrich, and today I'm honored to have Chris Johnson with me. Chris is a basketball coach and trainer, the founder of Just Hoop. And one of the things I think you're going to hear in his story is when your passion and your purpose can align, great things can happen. So, Chris, thanks so much for being on today.
Welcome for having me, Phil.
Yes, sir. So to start off, you had basketball in front of you from a very young age. Your dad was a great player, and if I understand correctly, was able to play in the ABA. So talk a little bit about growing up and being exposed to basketball, really probably from the get-go.
Yeah, I come from a family of, I feel like, really good athletes. Being in Texas, football, basketball, track, even baseball. I played Pony League baseball. Um, I come from a great family, to be honest with you. It wasn't a family of like fortune. It was a family of hard work.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that was bred into me is that you got to show up every day. You got to show up for your family. You got to show up for yourself, and you got to work as hard as you possibly can
Yeah.
till the day you die. And so I came from a hardworking family and good suburban group, but it was all middle class, all hard working factories, blue collar job type people. And being raised in that really curated who I am today.
I love it. Now, as you're growing up, and I'm sure, if you're in that financial element, I kind of come from a same financial background, and that is anytime a opportunity was presented to you and you knew it cost money, it meant even that much more. And your dad took you to the Spud Webb camp. So
Oh
talk a little
yeah.
bit about, going to a camp, seeing someone that's, doing it at the highest level and some of your takeaways you had from there.
Oh, this is a great story, right? So my dad um, lived in Dallas, Texas, and at the time, like I grew up and was born in Waco, Texas, because he went to college there, and um, I went up to see him for the summer, and going up to see him for the summer, he's asked me what type of basketball camps you want to attend. I was like, at the time, I don't know if you remember L.J. Johnson,
Oh yeah.
grandmama. He's
Yep.
from Dallas and Spud Webb. And I
Yeah.
was like, I want to go to both camps. And he said, well, you have to pick one. So I go to Spud Webb camp. And at the Spud Webb camp, I walk in, it'll be like 120 kids, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know anyone. But I was so locked in to trying to perform at a high level, to get the skills, to get the drills down, to learn, to when it's time to compete, I wanted to play hard because I wanted to get a photo with Spud.
Yeah.
And you know, it just really inspired me. But in the camp, I've seen how Spud Webb was 5'7" at the time.
Yeah.
And it gave me hope in maybe having an opportunity of one day of playing basketball at the very high level. And the camp just taught me so much. And I took what I learned from the camp, the ball handling, some shooting drills, and I literally trained myself every day
Hmm.
at the park, every day. And I trained people in my neighborhoods. So
Yeah.
everybody that's in my neighborhood, when I'm like 13 at the time, I'm like, yo, I just got back from Dallas. Like, if you're my teammate, like you got to put in the work. So we was working on these
Yeah.
crossovers and pull up. So the Sport Web camp was huge for me. That was probably the biggest camp I went to as a teenager. So that was pretty dope.
I love it. So you talked about it, hey, I'm an avid basketball guy, right? I'm diving in, I'm working on my craft every day, and that gives you the opportunity to go play at Cisco College for your first 2 years. So talk a little bit about, kind of realizing the dream and getting the opportunity to go play college basketball after high school.
I mean, it wasn't a fact if I could play college basketball after high school. It was more so trying to figure out, where the different opportunities lay, right?
Yeah.
And taking advantage of opportunities. And, being a country guy, you know, back in oof, 1996, it was only so many opportunities to get into certain lanes to be seen.
Yeah.
And it's not like it is today where you can literally be seen. I mean, I played in All-Star games, I played in these great American shootouts and like different things like that. And I cherish those moments. But playing in college was one of my goals and I was able to achieve it.
Yep.
And to be a 4-year player and to go on from there to Texas A&M Kingsville and to be a part of great teams and have success was one of the goals. And the second goal was to be a professional athlete after that and to obtain a college degree.
Yeah.
And so, that was the whole goal, is to see how far basketball could take me and be a vehicle,
Mm.
and to this day, basketball is still a vehicle,
Yeah.
for me. And it's a true blessing, but I didn't really understand um, how big of a vehicle it could be. I mapped things out when I was 13. Like I said, going to sport web camp,
Yeah.
grade going in as a freshman in high school, being a starter on a varsity team that was like number one in the state. And we were very good. And just realizing like, the opportunities are there and that, I could take advantage of them. And I knew I was like, hey, in some capacity, I want to be a professional coach,
Mm.
college coach, or high school coach. It was like
Yeah.
I gave
Yeah.
myself a 3-tier, and I was like, I could work to each level and do it if basketball stops and when basketball stops. And so that's how my college career went, and it was really
Yeah.
good. So I had a really good time in college. Great moments. I still have great friendships with my college teammates.
Yeah.
I won a lot of awards. I was 3-time defensive player of the year in our conference, and it was good to me. And I had
That's
great coaches.
Yeah, I love that. Now, while you're at A&M Kingsville, you get a master's degree, and I'm sure this is part of wanting to do the coaching aspect. You focus on emotional intelligence, which is a key part of having, a good athletic career because you have to understand and you have to be mentally tough. So, talk a little about, any findings that you had there that ended up being a good part of a launching pad for your career in coaching and training.
Well, the thing is, you got to pivot, right?
Yeah.
So after graduating college, I had a few opportunities that was setting up for me to be an overseas basketball player,
Yeah.
particularly in Germany at the time. Um, I, everything was pretty much set in stone. I had 2 more workouts to attend to. And in one of the workouts, believe it or not, it's the freakiest thing that could ever happen, is I ruptured my Achilles.
Oh,
And but here's the thing. I was 21. 21-year-olds don't rupture Achilles,
right.
right? But I told you I'm an avid worker. I'm a work horse. What I did is I bought these shoes that were called strength shoes. Only old people know about these shoes. But the strength shoes were built to develop you to jump higher, to run
Yeah.
faster, to tighten, strengthen the calf muscle. And I felt like I was a pretty explosive player, especially watching Spud.
Yeah.
So I really, even when you reach certain goals, you just work your ass off. You just work hard. And I look back now and I actually overworked
Mm.
that area because you
Yeah.
can't be in your stance like this. It actually put so much strain on that tendon
Yeah.
that I didn't even know it. And it was so simple that I was in a triple threat position and I just pushed off. At
Mm.
21, I imagine going from college, got your opportunity to start a professional career playing basketball.
Yeah.
Uh, at the time, I wasn't good enough to be in the NBA, but I could play overseas.
Yeah.
And with work ethic and commitment, you can hoop, and I had it. It was right here in my hands, and I ruptured my Achilles just catching the ball and pushing off at 21. But then I didn't understand it. But when I look back, I said, man, the strength shoes really, because I wore them like for hours.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
only supposed to wear strength shoes for like 8 to 10 minutes. So, needless to say, when I ruptured my Achilles, it forced me to have a pivot in life.
Mm,
Okay.
yeah.
And I ruptured my Achilles more so in August. So it was right before get ready to take off. So having the contract, ready to go. No, I had to go back home and I had to
Yeah.
go to my mom's house. So I got a college degree. I'm 21. I ruptured my Achilles. The doctor tells me I'm out for 18 months to 2 years.
Wow.
And so what I did see is I seen a lot of people hold on to dreams that were over,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And I decided that it was time for me to pivot into the next phase of my life.
Yeah.
Even though I love basketball and I wanted to play,
Yeah.
and I guarantee if I wouldn't have ruptured my Achilles, I would have played till like I was like 39.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't be where am today, developing, coaching, teaching in
Yeah.
my career because my career literally started when I was 22. I'm
Right.
45.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this 23 years. I'm young.
Yeah.
I and it's crazy because I got everything I wanted in my coaching career. So that's how I went back to get my master's degree. So most people don't know that pivot. I
Yeah.
was laying in, I was laying in bed, and this is for your listeners. This is a true story.
Yeah.
I got my ruptured Achilles up. I turn on the TV, and it's total chaos. 9/11. I
Mm,
ruptured my Achilles in August,
wow.
like at the end of August.
Yeah.
I had surgery like about a week or two after, which was like September. Laying in my bed, my foot is up, and I'm looking at the world coming to an end. I
Wow.
didn't know what was going on. So
Yeah.
in my brain, when you talk about emotional, I was like trying to figure out. I'm laying in my mom's bed. I don't want to be there. I'm a hard worker. I'm a great person. I got integrity. I'm trying to do things that I'm right. Why is things not going right for me?
Yeah.
Why? And so that's what I was asking myself every day.
Mm,
Why things are not going the way I wanted. I did everything, I suppose I put in the hours, I got the most out of it, and I'm okay with it. And then my brain switched. My college coach said, "Hey, you were one of the best coaches for us as a player
yeah.
because I was a point guard." And he was like, "You should come back and coach."
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I had to take my MAT, which is called the Miller Analogy Test, and send in my applications. And thank God for my coaches because at Christmas time, because the first semester is gone, I should be
Yeah.
playing.
Right.
I got back in December. I got into counseling school, which I looked at what would I want my future to be after basketball,
Mm,
and it's
yeah.
and it's developing people.
Yeah.
And so that was 2002 because of the start of the new year.
Yeah.
And so I began that journey and I told myself, I'm going to finish my master's degree in 1 year.
Wow.
I'm going to finish it in 1 year. So I had the half semester and then I had the whole year. So that's how I got into my graduate assistant
Yeah.
position
Yeah.
coaching. I was making $500 a month for
Oh
coaching
yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
getting a master's degree. And I decided that guiding and counseling would be my master's degree. And that's when I fell in love with my second love. And that was developing people and becoming emotional intelligent. And to understand that there's a connection between sports and mental development.
Yeah.
And until this day, I've always been focused on that. So when people are seeing me put stuff out, I've been doing this since 2002. Yeah, 2002, and now it's 2024. Just 22 years of mental, emotional intelligence, building the brain. And people always ask me, how you become this great trainer? I was like, my whole focus is the whole person.
Mm, I
I
love
actually
that.
care about the individual. And so to answer your question, that was my pivot. And that's how I got my master's degree. It was
I love
because of
it.
a ruptured Achilles. If I didn't rupture Achilles, I'd never get a master's degree.
Isn't that amazing?
And I
Who
did it in
knew?
a year. Who knew?
Yeah.
So I tell myself, I'm like, there's no way I would have went back because I would have been playing. I would have been good. And
Yeah.
I've been across the water. I've never got a master's degree.
So I want to piggyback off of one of the things that you said there. Working on the whole person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's two elements of being able to work on somebody. I think one is their willingness to be worked on. Two is having the trust in the relationship with somebody where you can get to know them well enough, deep enough that you can actually diagnose and address where the work needs to be done, right? I think
Right.
oftentimes we see a surface level something and it's like, I don't think that's the real issue, right? There's something deeper that but we got to get there. And you can only do that with trust. So talk a little bit about for you, how in your career as a coach, as a trainer, you've gone about building the trust with somebody, but then also how you can help diagnose where we really need to be addressing opposed to just looking at the surface.
Well, I mean, I think that goes back to how much you care about
Mm,
other people first. So
yeah.
the most important thing to me is the individual, not the sport,
Yep.
not the money, not the cars. It's the individual. So when you build a relationship with someone,
Yeah.
you build it the proper way. I don't steal. I don't have to lie. I don't have to do things under the table. I
Yep.
do things with face value, with integrity, and I handle everybody the same.
Yep.
So when I say that, don't misinterpret that. When I say I handle everybody the same, I have a standard to the way I handle people. But within the standard, there's individualism.
Yeah.
So I understand each individual and what they need to help them become the best that they become.
Love it.
So it's so establishing that foundation, it allows for communication between
Yep.
both. So in order to become like a master teacher, you have to become a master student.
Mm,
And so you have to really learn and study people's bodies and pay attention to body languages and,
yeah.
the way people are moving. And, today may not be a great day. So we have to pivot.
Yep.
So along the way, becoming a master pivoter is something that becomes very important. I told you a pivot in my life. That was the Achilles. My
Yeah.
left Achilles forced me to get a master's degree and forced me to start my coaching career.
Yep.
And so connecting with people became so important to me. And that's why I got a master's in counseling that I said, hey, when I'm like 60, I want to open a practice.
Yeah.
And I want to open a practice that was dealing with mental well-being.
Mm,
So, and I wrote my first dissertation over the emotional intelligence of
yeah.
minority student athletes. And that was
Yeah.
20 something years ago. And it's like, people are looking at me like, what? I'm like, yeah, I always dreamed about being here where I'm at
Yeah.
today.
I
So
love
it's
it.
more so not basketball, it's the development of people.
Yeah. I love
That's
that.
the most important thing, man. I know that sounds crazy. I
No,
love
hey,
basketball like you do.
yes, absolutely. No, I love that. Now, I think, for you, as you're progressing and you're coaching, and we're going to get to this, there's important connections that end up happening, but one of them, you end up having a chance to help coach at the John Lucas basketball camp. Talk a little bit about how that kind of came to be in your orbit and helping out there.
Well, Big John is a mentor. Big John he's Houston, Texas. That's where I lived at.
Yeah.
He is like a godfather of basketball there, and
Yeah.
so being a part of John Lucas's coaching camp and coaching crew was really important for me. being a sponge and
Yeah.
trying to learn not drills particular, because drills are drills,
Yeah.
but learn how to handle players.
Mm.
And Big John Lucas had a style of coaching that I really loved. I loved the fact that he was direct, he was straightforward, um, he communicated at a level that demanded respect.
Mm.
And whenever you can demand respect, you can get the most out of your players. And I
Yes.
remember him telling me this, and I was young. You got to remember, start my coaching career at 22, being able to work at being a graduate assistant, going into coaching in college, going from coaching in college to being a high school coach. High school coaching was important to me because I decided not to go the college route, to go the high school route, because I really wanted to connect and develop players.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people look at me today and say, "Hey, how did you get to where you are?" And I'm like, I coached at every level. I
Yeah.
coached at college. I coached as a high school coach in the state of Texas over a district of like 7 schools under me. So I had at least a coaching staff of like 12 to 15, right? And
Wow.
at the same time while I was coaching in high school, I was coaching the major AAU circuits. I
Yeah.
was coaching and developing all the college athletes, and I was coaching and developing all the NBA athletes.
Mm.
So when I was a high school coach, I was touching every kid from elementary all the way to the pros.
Wow.
And I was doing it in one day.
Yeah.
So I would get up at like 4 in the morning and drive across town and train my pros early, drive back to the school and be at freshman eight practice, watching my freshman eight coaches and everybody go through the day, middle of the day, go and train pros again in the middle of the day, come back for a high school practice, then a college practice, and then at night you got pros again. And
Yeah.
when people asked me, they was like, "How do you get to where you are?" And I was like, "Sacrifice. Are you willing to give up the
Yes.
good, to be great?" And so that John Lucas was a part of that portion, because in the summertime, John was the biggest thing in the world when it came to player development in the
Yeah.
summertime in our city in Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
And to be able to go and see it and to be a part of it and to have an assignment to be a part was very important to me, and it sticks with me to today about how to treat players and how to uh, demand respect in a fashion that allows for them to get better. So John
I,
was huge.
I love it. Well, and something I want to highlight that you said there for someone listening, they've got this big goal and they're like, I want to be at this spot, but they're not willing to do the small things that it takes to open up doors to get to the big spot.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I don't want to speak for you, but one thing that I found in my life was some of the leaders and people that I would say that I respect the most were people that never felt like they were too big for any part of their job. Right. And so,
Never.
and it's a dumb example, but it's like if you see the person that owns the building or owns the company and there's a piece of trash outside, they go and pick it up. They don't say, well, that's a janitor's job. Like, they'll do it. It's like, well, no, I respect and I care for what I'm doing. And my guess is that's the small characteristics, small, right? That helps them get to the echelon that they're at. It's not as if they just decided to do that once they were the owner. And I think for you,
Right. No,
hey, I'm
that's the
willing to
same.
step in and coach at a high school level. Like, yeah, maybe my ultimate goal was to coach NBA players someday or train them, but like I'm willing to step into the high school. I'm willing to step into a grade school, whatever it is, because my passion is for the people and to develop them as basketball players and people. And if I do that well, it'll open up doors.
The funny thing is, I'm in this basketball world, and I realized when I was coaching in college
Yeah.
that there was an absolute disconnection between the high school players that we were recruiting
Yeah.
and the players that was coming into college.
Mm.
There was no development.
Yeah.
And the reason why there was no development, because college coaches only learn the coach's system that they're a part of.
Yeah.
So if you only know that system
Mhm.
and you're not doing developmental like coaching schools and things like that to actually grow, you don't know as much as you know. You only
Right.
know a little bit because you. So when I looked at that, I was like, he knows his system. He knows that system. He knows his system. Let me ask them, what do they know? So I started asking a lot of questions. And this guy ran the flex. Well, this guy knew a lot about the flex, but he didn't know how to teach a kid the right footwork to get a shot off in the flex. And
Yeah.
I was like, this guy run a high low. Okay, I'm going to all of his clinics and conventions. He couldn't tell me how a guy can break down his player in the high low. He just knew what pieces. So then I
Right.
realized that coaches are coaching X's and O's, but what about the Jimmys and Joes?
Yeah.
And if I can learn how to truly develop a player from elementary, middle school, high school, I could take a 5-star player and make him a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And so my journey shifted when I realized that. And I was like, I could be a head coach in 5 years. I had the charisma. I'm smart enough. I had the master's degree. Used to have to have a master's degree to be a head coach. I could
Yep.
be a head coach in college within 3 to 5 years. I knew it.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what though? None of these coaches ever called timeout before. So how do you ever get your break if you never coached in a game?
Right.
That's why you have these long time assistants waiting for a job. But sometimes you got to go backwards, which is the boomerang effect,
Yep.
to go forward.
I
And
love it.
so high school to me was an opportunity for me to be free. It was the
Yeah.
most freest time in my life to explore. I developed my system. I was writing. I got my coaches. I had coaches all throughout the city. I was the president of the Houston Coaches Association at 24 years old.
Wow.
That means I was over every coach in the city of Houston in the association. I was a part of the TABC. I'm part of all these coaches associations. I'm speaking at Nike clinics. I was seeking knowledge.
Yeah.
And so when the college coaches that I knew would come recruit my players in high school, they would see the organization of practice.
Mm.
They would see the details of development. My kids was going from one level. I would take a B team kid and he could be a starter on varsity and go to college. And I did this in a good window of time. And I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Yeah.
And so while I was running my player development business and coaching in high school, I felt ready to go to the NBA.
Yeah.
And I had an opportunity to be a player development coach for the Houston Rockets. And I go in, I sign my first contract with the Houston Rockets. And when I get there, I realized the freedom that I had. I'm an artist. I didn't know I was an artist. I thought I was a hooper.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was an entrepreneur. So when people like you're saying going step by step, it wasn't that I was going step by step. I was just trying to be the best that I could be where I was.
Mm. Love that.
So I wasn't trying to go somewhere too fast. I just wanted to be the best right where I was.
Mm.
Coach of the year, coach of the year, coach of the year, championships. I was doing it. And every year I level up. But needless to say, when I spend my time in the NBA, then I go to the G League to be an assistant coach. And, at the time they were like, you spend your time in the G League as an assistant, then we bring you back up. And now you can go from player development to assistant coach, which is the process. And
Yeah.
they were very high on me. And at the time, I was kind of going through trying to realize, do I go back to my player development business
Yeah.
and not do high school basketball, just put everything into the business?
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I want to do it. And I was like, I'm ready. And I felt like at the time that I was one of the best teachers of the game, not from an X's and O standpoint. That's different.
Yeah.
That's called team development.
Yeah.
So there's several types of development. There's team development, which could be 5-on-5, 4-on-4, 3-on-3. Then you have player development.
Yeah.
Player development and team development are two separate types of development. And so when you ask and you're like, why didn't the player get any better? Is he got better within the team setting, but he didn't get no better as an individual.
Yep.
So, and so I realized that I was like, I can take other people's systems and I could build drills that apply the skill set that's needed within their systems.
Yep.
So what did I do? I went and I learned every basketball system in the world.
Yeah.
No. Every system in the world. All I started doing was I already kind of knew a lot, but I just dove in. I dove in 5 outs, 4 outs, one guard fronts, pin downs, floppies, flex, modified flex, reverse flex, diagonal cuts, high low, build self, North Carolina break, Kansas break when they was over there, the
Yep.
early fast break. I knew Duke. I knew it. So I did something that nobody else got the chance to do. I studied every coach, every player. I bought every book. I bought every video. I bought everything that pertained to basketball. Syracuse, the 2-3 zone, the
Yeah.
modified, the amoeba, UNLV, Arkansas, 40 minutes of hell. You just keep naming it. Like
Yeah.
every high school coach, every junior college coach, every professional coach. Dude, my brain is a running computer.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, what they can do, what can I do?
Yeah.
And that's how I got into player development, because I looked at everything that they could do and I said, okay, how can I develop a player in that way to be good in any system? Is it the system or is it the player? I said,
So
it's the
good.
player. So if
I
I could
love.
develop a player, my players should be able to play in any system.
Yeah. I love that.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the system.
Yeah. So to highlight that and to talk about a couple of those players, so you had the opportunity to start working with Mike James, and Mike James at the time is a teammate of Jimmy Butler's, and there's a connection that's made there. And to your point, there's a morphing of a player, right? And finding how to help them excel to the best level possible. So talk a little bit about the relationship that came there and some of the work that you started to do with Jimmy.
Well, Mike James, don't skip over Mike.
Yeah, I don't want to skip over Mike.
Yeah, don't skip over Mike. Don't skip over Mike. Jimmy probably was like, at the time, I probably had already been working with like 100, no, probably about 200 pros. So Jimmy was like later on. Mike was like one of the early on. So
Yeah.
Mike James, DJ Augustine, Cartier Martin, Big Baby, Tobias Harris, and the list goes on.
Yeah.
Gerald Green. I can name these guys, but Mike James was critical for me as a young coach, player development, and starting a player development company, which was unheard of at the time.
Yeah.
Like, I went to school for education. I went to school for counseling. I didn't go to school for entrepreneurship and business.
Yep.
And I look back and I'm telling my son yesterday, I was like, can you believe that things never go the way you plan? So you always work hard as you can while you can in the situation and build a formula, because there's no way I would have told you I'm an entrepreneur. I own several businesses. I own my own production company. I own my own Just Win company about mental health. I am a VC. I'm an investor. Like, I'm looking around. I'm like, I never thought I would do this. I thought I'd be coaching in the NBA. And
Yeah.
and can I coach in the NBA today? Right now, I could get a
Yeah.
job and go coach in the NBA. But Mike James was critical for me because Mike James was one of the hardest working people I've ever met.
Mm.
He never would have been in the NBA if he wasn't one of the hardest working people I ever met. So he taught me that there was no limit
Mm.
to development. He looked at development. Shout out to Mike James. Mike James looked at development as a full-time job.
Mm.
He said, Coach, and I think Mike is older than me. He always called me coach. I think at the time I was like 27, 28.
Yeah.
He said, Coach, I gotta work 8 hours a day. So I need you at 6 a.m. Then I'm gonna go to high yoga, 6 a.m. workout to 8, swimming, boxing, play. Then I'll come back and work with you again.
Wow.
He was the first guy that actually cut me a check for developing him.
Wow.
Like a real check. I'm not talking like $25 here, $25 there. Because I made a lot of money through being a high school coach and college coach. I was making great money. And so a lot of it for you young trainers out there,
Yeah.
when I was trying to figure out this is a long time ago too, guys. There was no player development type of activities going on. You go to the court and hoop, you go to the court, work on your game by yourself, but you didn't have like a specialty, a special
Right.
coach. You know, you had a few special shooting coaches, but you didn't have someone that can actually help you with your journey. And I was one of the first guys to do it, you know, and
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like I'm a pioneer to it because outside of John Lucas was doing it big and he did it in his way. I did it in my way. And so Mike James was critical for that. And, you know, Mike James taught me a lot about how far you should push. So
Yeah.
every player after Mike James, they got the best version of me because
Mm.
Mike allowed for me to push him with no limits. And
Yeah.
I've never not coached anybody without the expectations of them being the best player in the world. And I've touched so many players that if I get the naming names, then you miss names, and I don't like that. But Mike
Yeah.
James, I could start with Mike because Mike was the first person that hired me as his individual player development coach, not skill coach,
Yep.
player development coach, from film to his conditioning and to his skill development. And, you know, I was able to keep my career going about 7 years after that.
Wow.
And so along the way, you pick up a lot of players and, you know, but I've developed a formula that is proven. And that's the biggest benefit. So Mike James is the one.
Yeah. Now, with that, something that I'd love to have you highlight is, you talked about pushing people and, finding that realm of where they can go. And I think everyone's different in that regard, but everyone has that next level that they maybe aren't even aware of. So how do you help them find that? And how do you push through the uncomfortable to get to that next level and find that untapped area?
First of all, I think you said something earlier that was very good. It's the willingness.
Hmm.
It's one thing for me to want something.
Yeah.
It's another thing for the player to say, hey, I want all of your knowledge. I want to learn you got 22 years of experience of pro development. Teach me. No, I'm serious because it
Yeah.
works. You know how many Hall of Famers, you know how many All-Stars I have now? So if anyone comes to me as a knowledge seeker,
Yeah.
I can take them to the next level. Easy. I know how to do it. I'm looking at it like, oh, I got a formula to actually getting players to what we call peak performance.
Yeah.
Peak performance is getting a player to play at their very best when their very best is required. And
Yes.
that's what you train for. I
Right.
have the formula to have you prepared for every moment. There's no doubt I say it with confidence. I laugh about it. I don't have to be in the gym cursing people out. I don't have to down talk people. I treat people with respect and still able to get you to be an all-star, to make your family money, to change your life, and to become the best. I could do that without degrading you.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I
That
don't have to
it's
degrade.
impressive
Yeah,
is what it is.
yeah, because most people, when we was raised, you thought great coaches were, like the ones that kind of degrade you. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't coach like that. I don't teach
Love
like that. And so that's not who I am. And, that's a great question, but you have to be willing. You
it.
can't
Yeah.
force anybody to do it. I have kids now. And by having kids, I'm like, man, I want this for them,
Yep.
but do they want it?
Yeah.
And if they don't want it, there's no way I can want something more for another person.
Mm.
It
So
doesn't
true.
work.
So true.
It doesn't work. So I figure out what each individual that I work with, what they truly want. And what they truly want, I can drive them to it. And sometimes on the way to driving to this, you're able to jump that and go to another level because they were already willing to go. But
Yeah.
if you're dragging somebody to the gym and they're lazy and you can't, it's this, it's that, they're always late. No. First of all, I'm not doing the late shit because
Yep.
I'm not going to be late. I was on time. If you notice, I was on the phone. I was clicked in. I was on
Yep.
another call. Dude, I don't do late because that's disrespectful
Yeah.
to your time. And I think that's where John Lucas taught me about respect.
Mm.
So it really doesn't matter what player you're working with, what's his credentials, how many, all stars or how much money he makes on his salary. None of that shit is important. At the
Yep.
end of the day, we both are human beings.
I
We
love it.
both are men. So I'm gonna come with respect and I'm gonna be on time. So I require the same amount of respect.
Yes. Now, I think, in today's era, we get all the stories of Michael Jordan, we get all the Kobe Bryant, hey, I was showing up I thought I was going to be the first one to the workout at, 5 a.m. It started at 6 and the lights were on. And I think that work ethic is a piece that differentiates people, right? Because at the end of the day, there's a whole bunch of talented players, right? I mean, you made it to the NBA. Like, there's no doubt you
So
have
that
the
means
talent, right?
that means no doubt. If you make
like
it to the NBA, you are a good basketball player.
that's right. Like you've got the talent. There's no doubt about it. But there's a difference between a guy that gets the a rookie contract. There's the difference between the guy that has the 12-year NBA playing career, right? And I think the differential is one, what you're talking about, the willingness to be coached, but then two, the amount of effort they want to put in to develop their game because the the player has to morph over time, right? And you see it with literally everyone that has a long-term career. LeBron doesn't play the same way today they did in year one.
No.
Ray Allen didn't play the same way, at the end of the career as he did when he was with Milwaukee in the beginning, right? So it's like you
Right.
have to be able to morph to be able to have a long career. So that means you have to be humble, but you also have to put in the work ethic. So talk a little bit about those two elements there.
That's a good element, bro. That's a good element. Shout out to Chris Paul. I'll
Yeah.
use Chris because Chris is really relevant right now, right?
Yeah.
Chris has continued to extend his playing career for his ability to keep adjusting and pivoting.
Yeah.
It's not that he's humbling himself any more than what he was. He's the same person, he's the same player,
Yeah.
except his adaptability has allowed for him to continue playing the game that he loves. This has nothing to do with his success, all-star. So when you look at that, that takes a certain humility. It takes a certain amount of confidence too.
Yeah.
So he's like, wait a minute, how can you be humble and have confidence? You can.
Yeah.
And so Chris showing that today, I have so much respect for Chris in regards of how he's able to continue to position himself in his career. I would want to do business with him because I know for sure he's going to adapt. I know he's flexible. I know he's going to pivot. When things don't go right, he's going to be like, let's go get it.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with him last year at the Clippers game, he was like, man, I'm just now feeling like I'm becoming that great shooter. And imagine this dude's a Hall of Famer
Wow.
and he's
Yeah.
working because he's knocking out threes everywhere. He's like, bro, I've always had the basketball. People wasn't passing me the ball, you know,
Yeah.
and I was like, wow. And then another player is Mike Conley. Mike Conley in
Yeah.
year 16.
Mm.
He the other night he carried the team and when they needed him, but he's in year 16. He shoots the ball well. He's very high IQ. He's a motivator, but then he's a disciplinarian. He's a
Yeah.
leader. When you look at UD, UD
Yeah.
did it.
Right. Right.
2 years.
Oh man. Yeah.
You know, hard work, hard nosed, demanding. He wasn't even touching the court and was
Right.
pushing these dudes like, hey, let's go. And those guys went to the finals his last couple of years like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
You know, and so you're taking those type of caliber guys, you look at them in their pivot and their ability to adjust when obstacles are faced, when you're facing different points in your life, you can either fight it and then lose, or you can be strategic, pivot, and go one more notch. And so when people watching King James play, his game has evolved. He's even got more skilled. His
Yeah.
handles are even more better. He's shooting threes like it ain't nothing. King James is shooting them threes, man. Pow, pow, pow. He catching and shooting. You can't stop him.
Yeah.
He's playing. He can post up. He can catch at the elbow. He can shoot from half court. He's having fun. The game is
Yep.
easy, but that goes also with the hard work. It goes with his ability to pivot, to see things ahead. He's playing chess, not checkers, and that's just a few players to name
Yep.
right now. Dang it, I can't forget him because I'll post this clip. Klay Thompson. Klay
Yeah.
Thompson had the ultimate pivot
Hmm.
in the middle of the season in front of everybody. Now you post this one.
Yeah.
Athletes at the professional level have to fail in front of everyone. Failing in front of other people builds
Mm.
resilience.
Yeah.
It makes you mentally tough. It makes you realize that that's the worst thing that can happen. That's it.
Yeah.
So now, only thing I can do is go forward.
Yes.
So Klay Thompson's mental toughness, oh my goodness, is through the water.
Yeah.
He's a champion because he was able to face adversity, face all of these negative reporters and people that are negative. And he was like, I could do better.
Yeah.
So they changed his position and put him off the bench. And he came off the bench and scored 30 and scored this and do that. It's a resilience that goes with failing. And
Yep.
so athletes have to learn how to overcome failure.
Hmm.
And that is the sum of that question.
I love it. Well, Chris, you and I could keep talking for hours. I'm sure you have the next thing to be attentive and on time too. So I will end it
Absolutely.
here. But Chris, I want to say thanks so much for sharing your journey and just all the amazing things that have gotten you to where you're at. And I'd love to do this again, and we can highlight the businesses that you're doing and promote that a little
Yeah.
bit more. But I just want to say thanks to you, for all the listeners, for sharing your story and just the amazing work you're doing. And it's a testament. Where you've gotten is a lot because who you are in public and who you are in private is the same person, and people want to be around high quality people.
Phil, this was a great podcast, bro. I think you did an amazing job. You know, you were able to get things that I traditionally don't share. And it's not that it's not important to me. And I'll leave you guys with this. I only believe that you're only as good as you are today.
Mm.
So no matter what I've done in the past, it really don't matter. I can go back and talk about being an all-state player in high school. It really don't matter. I can go back and talk about my college days. It really don't matter. I can go back and talk about all the accolades I won as a coach. It really don't matter. What matters is how great can I be today? And that's why I really don't talk about it. But you did a good job, made me go down memory lane, you know, and it's amazing. So anything that you need from me, brother, I'm here for you, Phil. And it was great being on the show today.